LSU's Jayden Daniels wins the Heisman Trophy in 2023, and Kansas City Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes wins yet another Super Bowl championship. Both quarterbacks played in basically the same type of scheme offensively, and the three QBs that were invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony in New York City this year all played in similar systems, and the four quarterbacks that played in the divisional round playoff championships this year in the NFL were in similar schemes. You've all heard the term before, QB-friendly offense. What exactly is that? That's today on Constructing the Quarterback. Every quarterback in college football and the NFL can play. They all can spin it. They all have arm talent. But why are some QBs way more successful than others? In other words, if you take 10 NFL quarterbacks with basically the same physical characteristics, the same mental ability to process X's and O's, why is it that some of those quarterbacks excel while others languish? It's the system. And it's not just the system, it's a particular kind that allows quarterbacks to flourish and play at the top of their game. These are the offensive components that make a QB-friendly offense. We'll start with spreading them out. And what I'm talking about when I say spread them out, I'm talking about formations. Make the defense defend the entire width of the field. When you empty the box, you take defensive players out of there, it makes the offensive lineman's protection simpler because you're able to tell who is coming, where they're coming from. When you spread the defense out with your formations, it makes a much clearer picture for your offensive lineman. And every quarterback can attest, if he's got great protection, his life is a lot easier. Next component, the quick game. Okay, quick, short passes. And the key to the quick game and why this is such a great friend for the quarterback is that it allows him to get the ball out of his hand. Quarterbacks get into trouble when they hold the football. And anybody that's watched football knows that the longer the QB holds the ball in the pocket, that thing starts to crumble on him. I mean, the offensive line can only pass pro for a certain amount of time before someone's going to get beat, someone's going to get caved in, someone's going to get pushed back at the QB, where they're going to cause a disruption in the rhythm and tempo of throwing the ball. So when you go quick game, I'm talking about three-step drop, or what I call a GST, which is grab, stab, and throw. And you guys have probably heard me say this on other shows, GST, grab, stab, and throw. And what that is your quarterback's in the gun. He grabs the snap, he stabs that back foot in the ground, and he strides and throws, GST. And you'll see a lot of quarterbacks do this, not so much on the NFL level, but in the college level, which makes great sense to me. This is the way I did it when I coached. When my quarterback was throwing a hitch route, he was throwing a stick route, he was throwing an option route, he was throwing slants, he was GSTing. So we're catching the snap and we're getting the ball out. And quarterbacks really like doing that because they're able to throw the ball in rhythm and tempo and they're not getting hit. Okay, this is a big one for QB-friendly offenses. Screens, screens, and screens. Throw screens. The reason why screens are so effective is you're getting the ball out on the perimeter. All right, you're getting the ball out of your hand quickly on some screens, but you're getting the ball out on the perimeter and you're making defensive backs tackle. And so when you talk about screens being an extension of the running game, if you're just pounding the ball in between the tackles, well, who are the guys on defense that get paid to tackle? linebackers. And so you're trying to run it up in there. And yes, you've got offensive linemen that should be working up and blocking linebackers, but that's not always the case. And linebackers are usually sure tacklers. The guys that don't get paid to tackle are the guys on the perimeter, the DBs. Those guys get paid to cover receivers. So it just makes sense to get the ball out there on screens. Number one, you're getting it into the hands of great athletes, your receivers or your running back. And then number two, you're making defensive backs actually tackle. And as we saw in some of the playoff games this year in the NFL, even the teams that were playing in the divisional round championship games, their secondary, the Lions, the Chiefs, they weren't good tacklers. And so you get the ball out there to guys that can make things happen, and you're moving the sticks and you're picking up chunks of yards, and your quarterback's loving life because he's not getting hit. He's just spitting the ball out there and letting his guys do their thing. Okay, the other thing that screens do that help your quarterback out is they tire out defensive linemen. Think about it now. Your D linemen are now forced to run laterally and chase down screens. Now, this may not show itself in the first quarter, but you start getting halfway through the second quarter, end of the first half, and into the second half, and you've got those big defensive linemen that not only have to get upfield on pass rush, but now have to change directions and run side to side to make tackles out there. They start getting gassed. And when those guys get gassed, the pass rush is decreased, and that makes life a lot easier for your quarterback. Another thing with the defensive lineman and screens is it slows them down. If you're a team that runs a lot of screens, I can guarantee you defensively, they are working all week in practice with their defensive linemen not getting upfield with their ears pinned back and coming balls out like they normally would. They're coming upfield slower. They're trying to read offensive linemen or running back to tip off screens. And anytime you put that thought in a defensive lineman's head about screens and having to defend screens, having to mush and jump and try to get your hands up to disrupt screens, you're taking away their ability to pin their ears back and beat offensive linemen and get in the QB's face. And the last thing that screens do for a quarterback and how they affect defenses, it really discourages blitzing. And any offensive coordinator that knows how to throw the ball and hurt defenses will tell you if you're playing a team that's going to bring a lot of pressure, screen the hell out of them, because if you hit the screen, it's see you later. It's a huge, huge play. And defensive coordinators get nervous when they know that an offense that they're playing against has a great screen game. They get nervous about playing cover zero man-to-man and bringing the house against the quarterback. They may get a sack or two when they do that. If they bring one more guy than what the offense can block, they may get a sack or two. But if they get hit in the mouth with a screen against an all-out blitz, you're probably looking at the offense calling the extra point team in because they just scored. So what screens do for your QB is they affect the pass rush in a number of ways and make life a lot better for the quarterback. Okay, QB-friendly offenses and offensive coordinators match the quarterback's drop with the route concept. Real briefly, what I'm talking about here is if you're running quick game, then your quarterback's either GSTing, grab, stabbing, and throwing, or he's doing a 3-step drop or 3 quick. Whatever he's doing with his feet, it's matching up to where when he gets to the end of that drop and jams that back foot in the ground, the ball is out. and that's allowing him to throw in rhythm and tempo. And if he's throwing more intermediate routes, you may put a 3-step drop and a hitch in there, or have your QB do a 5-step drop. Either way, with intermediate routes, when he gets to the end of his drop, he plants that back foot in the ground, strides, and throws. Again, rhythm and tempo. And that affects accuracy, which in turn affects confidence and your completion percentage and the ability for receivers to catch the ball and run because things have been thrown and caught on time. That's affected greatly. Okay, passing game concepts. So every great passing game has man zone concepts built into their routes, which means if your receivers are running that concept against zone, they're going to run their route a certain way. They're going to run zone routes. If they see man to man, they're going to run man routes. And in zone, you're trying to find grass. And against man to man, you're sticking your toe on the ground and you're bursting away from coverage. Zone routes, good design for zone routes that make it QB friendly is you take a defensive player and you put him in conflict. And what I mean by that is you put a receiver inside of a defensive guy and a receiver outside of that defensive guy, and your quarterback reads whichever way he goes, your QB throws to the other guy. Or you run a vertical read where you put a receiver behind a defender and a receiver in front of that defender, and your QB reads his drop. If he hugs the short route, he throws behind him. If he gets depth, he throws the ball in front of him. Those are great. That's a great way to attack zone defenses, and it's easy reads for the quarterback. If you're getting man-to-man coverage, again, you're bursting away from your routes. You're sticking that toe on the ground and bursting, whether it's a dig route, a corner route, an out route, an option route. And QB-wise, you're looking for matchups. And Tony Romo said it great this year on one of the telecasts. In fact, it may have been the Super Bowl, where he was talking about the key in man-to-man from an offensive standpoint is you want to get your best receiver on their worst cover guy. That's matchups. And if you've got those built into your pass offense, your quarterback's really, really happy. Okay, get your running back involved in your passing game. In other words, run 5 receiver routes. Gone are the days where your running back stayed in and helped the offensive lineman in pass protection. What you see now in QB-friendly offenses is that back is check releasing, so he's checking for his pass pro responsibilities, and if his guy doesn't come, he's releasing into the route, or you're hot releasing the back where he has no pass pro responsibilities. He's just going. Either way, when you involve your running back in your passing game, you are really stressing the defense, because defenses cannot account for running backs in the passing game. So getting your back involved in your passing game, making him just as important as the 4 receivers, that's QB friendly. Okay, getting the protection right. In a QB friendly offense, your offensive coordinator and your quarterback, you're running that chessboard and you've got the final say. Before the ball's snapped, get your protection set so you're getting guys blocked that you know are coming. Get them blocked. And if you can't get them blocked, then kill the play and call a different play and then snap it. But what you don't want to do, and what your quarterback doesn't want to do, is snap the ball when he knows there's a guy that's coming unblocked. And you're not running a screen, you're not throwing hot. He's left to dangle out there in the wind, and that's just not very QB friendly. So get your protection set, get the guys blocked that you know are coming. Okay, with the passing game, for your quarterback post snap, simple progression reads. Simple progression reads. If then, if then. If this defender does this, then you go here. If this defender does this, then you go here. And you give him just a couple, one or two if thens, or check the ball down. Okay, that is as simple and as basic as you can get, and that's what it has to be for your quarterback. If your QB is playing in a system where the reads after he snaps the ball are too complicated, now he's thinking too much. And when he's thinking too much, he's holding on to the ball. And when he's holding on to the ball, the pocket's breaking down. And that's not a good situation for anybody offensively. With those reads, they have to make sense to your quarterback. So when you talk about the mental game with your QB, you're talking about how he processes things before the ball snapped, and then how he processes post snap with his progression reads. But they have to make sense to your quarterback. He has to understand your pass offense and understand how you as an offensive coordinator are attacking the defense that he's seeing. I always used to tell my QBs that they're playing a video game and they've got the joystick, and they can control that thing however they want. If you know what's coming defensively, if you know what they're playing coverage wise, and you know that you've got a couple of things that will absolutely kill that defensive look, and your quarterback knows the same thing, where you're both on the same page, then it becomes easy. And when your quarterback is in that mind frame, his confidence level is skyrocketed, and that increases everything about his play at the QB position. Okay, no huddle. Quarterbacks love no huddle. Why? Well, it really affects the defense, because our defensive players out there really drew strength from being in that defensive huddle and being grouped in there and talking to each other and all that. Well, the no huddle takes that away. And so what it does is it forces defensive guys to just stand out there in their position and wait for the offense to snap the ball. And so you're taking that strength and that energy that they get from the defensive huddle, and you put them out there on an island now where they're just out there uncomfortable. And so offensively and as a quarterback, you automatically gain an advantage right there. Tempo. Tempo is a quarterback's best friend. Tempo does so many things to put your offense in an advantageous situation. If you're able to go fast, okay, what it does to the defense is, number one, it gasses them. So we talked earlier about defensive linemen having to chase screens laterally and how that affects them as you go further into a game. Well, when you add tempo to that, where those guys now have to expend all that energy on pass rush, and you're snapping the ball fast, and they don't have time to catch their breath, where they have to put their hand down in the dirt again and do it all over, you have an advantage. And every quarterback knows that if you're going against a defense that is gassed, man, that makes your life really, really easy. The other thing that tempo does is, I think that it makes defensive coordinators be really, really simple with what they're doing scheme-wise, because tired players make mistakes. And offensively, when you run tempo, no huddle and tempo, you're constantly practicing that all season long, every day of the week, all week long, all season long. All right. Your opponent, who has to prepare for you in 3 to 4 days, they're not used to going against tempo like that. And so it puts them in like a situation mentally where they're like frantic and they don't know how to adjust themselves mentally and physically. And so you've got this advantage over them. But defensive coordinators know that when their guys start to get tired, they start to make mistakes. So they don't have a lot of really tricky stuff that they're going to do, or a lot of different calls. And what you want as a quarterback is you want to play against a defense that sits in one front and plays one coverage. Then it's pretty easy to attack that. And that's what tempo does for you. Okay, quarterback-friendly offenses change up the snap count. How does this work in the quarterback's favor? Well, when you change up the snap count, it's like throwing screens. When you go first sound, when you go on one, or when you go on a freeze count, it's like screens. You slow down that defensive line and you get in their head. So think about this now. What does a defensive lineman have to think about when he goes against a team that throws screens, that runs no huddle, that runs tempo, and that changes the snap count? Well, I'm going to tell you what he can't think about. He can't think about pinning his ears back, getting his ass way up in the air, and just flying off the ball on the snap and getting upfield and trying to destroy the quarterback. Condensed playbook. Condensed playbook. Okay, what does this do for your quarterback? Well, when you only run a few plays, what are you working on in practice all week long? You're working on the same things over and over and over. And in the game of football, like anything else in life, the more you repeatedly do something, the better you get at that. And I said this before in another show where coaches run into problems where they run plays in games that they haven't practiced during the week, or they practice plays during the week in practice that they don't call in the game. That's not QB friendly. QB friendly is every day of the week leading up to the game, you're working on the same plays that you're going to be running on game night or game day. And that's how you get really, really good at what you're doing, and that's QB friendly. Practice structure. So we're talking reps. And with your quarterback, it's working on the necessary skills that help his game in your scheme, and do the same stuff from the first practice of the season all the way through the last game of the year. You're working on the same stuff all season long, all week long. Again, reps, and the right kind of reps, working on the right kind of stuff. That's QB friendly. Okay, so if you want to score a ton of points and win a lot of games and have your quarterback put up big time numbers, make your offense QB friendly. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please post a comment down below. Let me know what you think about QB friendly offense, and be on the lookout for my next My Take, where I talk about the 5 quarterbacks that will probably go in the first round of the draft coming up, the order in which I would draft them. This is QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.